35 drivers. 6 weeks. If you want to make it to the Supercup, you have to survive this gauntlet. This is the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Hello everyone and welcome to the penultimate round of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. We are so close to seeing which 15 drivers get themselves a slot booked into next year's Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. We come at you from a very sunny California here. The Long Beach Street Circuit will be our venue for today. My name is Connery Maddock. I'm joined by the ever wonderful Joshua Lee. And Josh, this is going to end up being the most technical circuit on the calendar, the most challenging circuit on the calendar, and it will really put a huge demand on these drivers, which is why I am so excited to see what the racing is like today.
Well, it's the only street circuit that we're going to see on this Contender Series calendar. What comes with a street circuit? Well, you have a bumpy track surface, you have walls all around, and very little room for error. That is exactly what we have here at the Long Beach Street Circuit, built literally on the streets of Long Beach, right next to the port, right next to the aquarium that is over there as well. This track, known, famous for IMSA racing and IndyCar racing as well. This course provides a ton of technical sections, a very tough turn 11 to get right, especially in these Porsches. We're in for a fun day, Connery.
This track that also played host to a good handful of US GP as well, way back in the late 1970s to the early 1980s. Of course, last US GP here was 1983. So it's a track with a lot of history as we have a little bit of a recap of how we got here and where we're going. So the bottom 20 finishers of the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup from last season will have to compete for a slot once again. That's the end of the last season. And of course, we also had a qualifying series happen just a couple of months ago where we get the top 15 finishers from that series competing here today to make a total of 35 drivers that are trying to compete for 15 slots in the 2022 Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup. And well, here's the state of the points at the moment. You can see where the top 15 cut line is. You see Gianni Vecchio leading at the moment by 20 points over Julian Sonnen. The top of the championship isn't as much of an issue or isn't as much of a point of contention for this season. It's those areas around that 15th place which will be the important ones. Who's in and who's out. Currently, Bobby Zelensky is in. Ayaan Shanguven is hot in his heels, just 2 points behind. Jack Sedgwick and Joshua Anderson also looking to get themselves in.
And these standings, Connery, also include that drop week. So it is the worst result that these drivers have had over the first handful of rounds here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. So they are getting a little bit of help. That worst result is taken out. But at the same time, you don't know if any other driver is going to have a worse drop week and fall down the order. You don't know if any other driver going to keep their consistency up and not even use another drop week yet in this standing. So still a lot to talk about when it comes to Long Beach and the final round in 1 week's time from the Nürburgring. This championship and that cut line is definitely not done.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are getting ourselves into qualifying mode here. These drivers will have 12 minutes to complete a maximum of 3 flying laps here at Long Beach. So you can't just go and do laps for that entire 12 minutes. You do have a limitation on how many fast ones that you can set, or rather times that count towards your starting position for the sprint race. Of course, sprint race will be 13 laps here today. And then once we head into the feature event, we will double it up to 26 laps. And the top 8 from the sprint race results will be inverted for the grid for the main event. So that's one that always throws us some surprises and mixes up the results that we tend to see at the ends of races here in the Porsche Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. We still haven't had a repeat winner of a main race.
Getting a look at Cooper Webster, one of the drivers who has been on fire when it comes to this series, especially in the last handful of rounds. Of course, the winner of the feature race from Road Atlanta 1 week ago. So that Logitech G Altus Esports machine looking for some success here. And you can see him slowing down, going through the final corner. That is turn 11 here at Long Beach, getting on the power, ready for a good run down the front straightaway on East Shoreline Drive. And he's going to take that start-finish line and go to his first flying lap here, Connery. We'll see what Webster can do in the 37.
Yeah, it is a very, very tricky circuit to qualify. Racing is a completely different issue as well. But you see, yeah, he's heading in towards turn number 1 as well. It narrows on the exit here, and immediately he's actually going to abandon that lap and get himself prepared for a second flying lap here. So not at all confident in the state of the car for the moment. So that's why Webster not taking this lap entirely seriously here as he heads his way through the exit of that first sector. Here's the Vodafone onboard, the well, not quite driver's eye view, but I guess middle seat rear passenger view of this Long Beach circuit.
We continue to ride on board with that 10 machine. This is Jack Sedgwick, who we are riding on board right now with in the Vodafone onboard. You can see just how close he gets to that wall. That's the exit of turn 8, one of the tighter right-handers on this circuit. And I say tighter because most of the right-handers around the circuit are very tight right-handers. So just a little bit tighter than, you know, the one he's going through right now. That's turn 9. Here's turn 10, leading up to turn 11, the very difficult corner to get right. Indy cars go full lock on the wheels, expecting some of the same here in these Porsches as Sedgwick gets ready for a flying lap, goes wide, trying to get the best run to the front straightaway. Exactly what he is going to try and get. Here's Bobby Zelensky, Connery, the driver that is on the cut line right now. If anybody needs a good finish here from Long Beach, it's Bobby Zelensky.
Yeah, he's the driver in the most immediate danger at the moment. Of course, lots of drivers around the cut line, very, very potent on any given day. Anshin Guven in particular, of course, he's a real-world driver for the Porsche manufacturer, so he's certainly got a lot of experience with these cars, and you know has a Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup season under his belt as well. So certainly no stranger. But of course, you know this is going to be the one of the last times that we'll get to see the 991 in action here, because we've got the new 992 variant of the 911 GT3 Cup car on iRacing now. So it's going to be a bit of a change of cars for them once we get into the season proper. But for Bobby Zelensky, just wheeling that car through the first sector, he's got that completely and utterly done with now. In swinging that car in towards turn number 6, get as close to the wall on the inside as you dare. I wouldn't be surprised if we lose a few wing mirrors today, Josh.
Definitely not. And I was analyzing that lap from Bobby Zelensky as we swap over to the Vodafone onboard with Kane Halliburton here. You can see how much they're fighting those wheels. And we talk about the different wheel setups drivers will have, especially in this series. Some of the drivers running direct drive might be fighting their force feedback a little bit more than the drivers running, you know, more of a normal force feedback akin to a couple of years ago before direct drive really became the main thing a lot of these pros were running. So these direct drive drivers are going to be having a little bit more of a challenge because they're going to need to be wrestling with that wheel a lot more than I think a lot of the other drivers will in this field. But at the same time, they get a better feel for what is exactly happening with their race car. Could help them when it comes to racing here at Long Beach, so they know exactly what their car is doing over these harsh bumps as first times come in. Alessandro Bico at the top as we get a good look at Oscar Bixrud.
Yeah, Oscar Bixrud, also a driver that's in, well, not entirely clear as far as the cut line is concerned. So he's going to require a decent effort here in these last 2 rounds of the season to try and secure his place as far as the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup is concerned. And of course, he's part of the Contender Junior team as well, and he's put up a couple of good results so far already, has Oscar. Of course, he had a double podium finish in sprint and feature at the Red Bull Ring for our 3rd round of the season, so he certainly has it in him to bring that car onto the into the top 5, but it's going to require a monumental effort here at Long Beach today to try and repeat that particular performance as Oscar Bixrud comes across the line now and will not improve on his 11th starting position.
Brian Lockwood looking for a good time. Looks like he brought it through that corner. You can see the focus and the Never Not Racing hat that he is repping there in the number 43. And it looks like he's unhappy with that lap, going to abandon it, going a little bit slowly through that last corner, wondering if this will be a final lap. He is warming up. This is his out lap that he is taking here. So trying to get heat in the tires, trying to get ready for the flying lap that he is about to take part in. Has not set a lap time yet. So this will be his first lap time on the board. First benchmark we're going to get of Brian Lockwood here today from Long Beach. Connery hasn't had the results that I think he's been looking for, but he's inside the cut line by a little bit of a considerable margin as well. So I wouldn't be too stressed if I was Brian Lockwood, but still P12 versus P15 being that cut line. He would like to be a little bit further up the standings, I feel like.
I think he might take another lap to prepare for his flying lap here as well. A little bit of a flash of the lights across the line. It's almost like he knew he was being watched on broadcast. But here's one of the Urano Esports cars. This is the number 92 of Nicholas Laubisch at the moment. He's P24 in qualifying. He's coming towards the end of a flying lap here. So into the final hairpin he comes. I wonder how many desperate dives that we're going to see in through there during the course of the race. But now it's a drive to the line for Nicholas Laubisch. Does he improve on P24? The lap time comes through. He does improve, but it's only to P23.
Lockwood still on that second warm-up lap like you were talking about, Connery. And it looks like we're going to have a good look at a Vodafone replay here with the 17. Ooh, so close to the wall. I believe he barely missed the wall, Connery. I don't think he hit it. Small tap to the other side.
We needed to cut away from that about half a second earlier so that it looked like he just didn't hit any of the walls. I think the little tap at the end ruined that there for Sipler, but otherwise, pretty good car control. But yeah, you don't want to be doing that in the race, that's for certain, because not only are you going to be involved in an incident, you're probably going to collect about 20 cars behind you if you spin at some portions of this circuit as well, particularly through the fountain section, where it's basically a single line through there. If a car gets spread sideways through there, you're basically blocking the entire circuit. So hopefully that does not happen in either of the two races here today, although I might be jinxing it as a commentator. But Brian Lockwood then coming up across the line then to start his one and only flying lap here. He's taken 2 laps to prepare for this one. If he gets a single instant point, if he even gets a single tap of the wall, that gives you an instant point. And, well, that is much, much, much more than a tap for Brian Lockwood. Lockwood starting P27.
Got on the brakes, I believe, a little too late, or almost not at all, and slammed into the tire barrier. So you're going to look at P6 currently on the timing sheet, Bobby Zelensky, and we're going to get a Vodafone replay of that turn 1 incident with Brian Lockwood. Goes into the corner. It just completely misses it. You can see him lock it up, and a hard hit into the tire barrier there on the outside of turn 1.
Committing a little bit too much with the speed. Needed to get that car and just that a little bit more to try and swing into that corner. But, you know, the margins are so fine. You know, these cars can be tail happy at times, and of course you've got that ever-present wall on the right-hand side, so if you do overstep the mark just a little bit, you're going to tag it and you're going to invalidate your lap. That was, well, for Lockwood, that was a little bit more than invalidating the lap there. He just completely pancaked the right-hand side of that car into the wall. Here's Julian Sonnen then, one of the drivers that has impressed us from RAG Esports here. Of course, he's completed his qualifying now, so he won't be able to get himself any higher on the starting grid than he is already. That's P5. But he's just doing some reconnaissance laps here just to make sure that his sights are set for the beginning of the sprint race in about 2 minutes' time.
And on a track like this, Connery, I think these reconnaissance laps are going to be important, especially for Julian Sonnen in the 40, because he has a fast car, who, like you said, qualified in 5th. He is currently in 5th on the timing sheet. Wants to make sure his car is perfect, his driving line is perfect for when we go into the sprint race, into the feature race, that he can use the speed that he has in that car to its maximum potential and try and walk away with a win. He's 2nd in the points right now, so we know that he is a shoo-in for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup in 2022. Trying to put a capitalization on the Contender Series calendar in these last 2 rounds.
Well, you got to look at which drivers feel that these later rounds are so much more important, because we've got some drivers that are towards the front here in qualifying that we don't usually see. We see Alessandro Bico on pole position. We're seeing the practice starts, in fact, potentially from Bico, but he does take the toe back to pit lane. Important to get those practice starts underway. We've seen many drivers have an absolute nightmare of a start over the past couple of races, so it's good to make sure to know what's up during the course of the beginning of races here. But we see, Bico pole position, Sipler P2, Caruso in P3 in qualifying here for the moment. So a lot of names that we're not used to seeing at the very front in terms of qualifying. For example, Alessandro Bico, he's 10th in points at the moment. Sipler's 13th in points. We have to look all the way down the order for Caruso to find where he's residing. He's in P20. He's on the cut line now, I suppose, around that P20 area for the moment. So those drivers knowing that it's qualifying is so important, because the track position might pay dividends today. Well, let's have a quick look then at the starting grid for the sprint race here at Long Beach. It is Alessandro Bico from Williams Esports taking the pole position, with Matti Sipler on the front row as well. Jordan Caruso starts in third, with Cooper Webster in fourth to make an all-Altus Esports row number 2. Julian Sonnen and Bobby Zelensky will round out the top 6 machines. Peter Berryman from Apex is in P7 to start. We've got Sam Keated on the outside of row 4 as well. Moreno Sorica and Alexander Walters further back. We've got Quentin Violate and Oscar Bixrud rounding out the top 12. We've got Elvis Rankin, David Williams bringing things back to P14, with Vlad Kimichev and Dino Lombardi back to 16th place. We got Halliburton in 17th, Alexei Nesov starting in 18th, Grabowski starting 19th, and we've got Cedric in the 20th grid spot. Then those outside the top 20, we've got Josh Thompson, Ayanchan Guven, who needs a good result here today to try and get inside that cut line. We've got Nicholas Laubish in P23 with Christiansen in P24. Then Goddestad, Anderson, Lockwood, and Benso will round out the 28 car starting grid that we have here today. Benso, the only driver not to set a qualifying time. Here's a little bit of a recap of the format here today. We've got 35, eligible drivers, 28. We're going to get to the starting grid here today. We've had qualifying of our 12 minutes and 3 flying laps. The sprint race, 13 laps. The feature race, 26 laps. And we've got about 30 seconds until the green flag.
This is going to be an intense run down into turn number 1 here, Connery. Really not knowing what we are going to expect when all these Porsches hit the brakes down into turn number 1. Will we see drivers go into the tire barrier? Or is everybody going to make it through cleanly and have a stack up at the fountain curve? Anything can happen as we get ready to go green.
It could be a very interesting first lap here at Long Beach, the penultimate round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series is about to get itself underway. 13 laps of sprint racing action here in the Porsches as the drivers get ready, and they go. Green flag here in California. We've already got 3 wide across the grid spots there. Further back through the order, it's side by side for the race lead, though, on the brakes in towards turn number 1 in just a couple of moments' time. Going side by side through here can be very, very sketchy. Bico is able to slide himself ahead. We've got 4 wide in the mid-pack here. Surely that can't work, but somehow they've been able to get through on that one. No casualties through the first sector, but casualties in the fountain as there's pandemonium. The track's blocked.
Everybody involved in it from about 12th on back, getting a huge stack up in the fountain corner, and everybody trying to survive it now and get through. It is a complete roadblock down there, but out in front, what a gift for Alessandro Bico, able to avoid all the carnage on the opening lap, now pulling away with the race lead. Sipola, Webster, Zelensky, and Berryman all survive in the top 5. But what a start here from Long Beach, Connery. We were expecting a little bit of the unexpected. Don't think we were expecting as much as that carnage that happened in turn 2.
Well, it was always going to be a possibility, but we were hoping amongst all hopes that we wouldn't get that. But it is the nature of the racing here at Long Beach, just like it's the nature of the racing sometimes at Macau. Of course, we don't have that at iRacing, but it's a good real-life comparison. as we head on towards lap number 2 here of the sprint race, and we'll get to see exactly what happened there through the through the fountain section. It's one of the Altus cars that gets spun first, then Urano machine number 33 involved in that. That's Alexei Nesov getting spun through the fountain as well. And once you have cars that are sideways across the track like that in a very narrow section, there's no hope for getting through from anyone else behind.
Yeah, that Altus machine that got spun there, I believe it was the 22 of Jordan Caruso, who was the one that got spun. He has damage now on his race car. Got turned around through the middle of the fountain, and then I believe that's where the stack up and everybody piling in from there. Here's another look at the Vodafone replay. Bottom of your screen, you can see that orange and blue machine on the outside get turned, and he gets turned right back into the field, and that's where the stack up begins. Nowhere for those Porsches behind him to even go.
Yeah, of course. Well, that would be a good argument to have a safety car here in these series. I'll be completely honest, because that would have been certainly called upon if we had it here in this type of racing. But of course, we continue on with the green flag conditions here at the end of lap number 2, on towards lap number 3. It's Biko, Sipler, Webster, Zelensky in that order. Zelensky doing very well indeed. He's getting the points required right now to try and keep himself inside of that top 15. That's the important thing. Biko and Sipler, though, I get the feeling they might have a ding-dong battle for the race leader when all is said and done once we get to the latter stages of the event. But for now, it is just all about survival.
We get a great look at Alessandro Biko, Matty Sipler fighting for this race lead. It's important for Alessandro Biko to be up at the front here, Connery. Remember back, has been one of the consistent drivers as we go on board with Sipler on the top box here. But Biko has been one of the strong drivers this season, always running up front, always looking like he is on pace for good results. Just has been able to put a full race together. Believe since the Red Bull Ring, he won the feature race there, but since then hasn't been the best running for Alessandro Biko in terms of wins in either the sprint or the feature. Still with consistent finishes, though, looking for a win here at Long Beach in the sprint race, and looking pretty stout to do that right now is Matty Sipler. Nothing he can do yet from P2.
Sipler with his typical wind machine, it seems, just giving his hair a little bit of a flutter, like a superhero. But he's hoping for a particularly heroic performance here today, because, well, Alessandro Biko is keeping him at bay for now, but we are still in the first half of this event. Still a long way to go for the sprint race. And of course, we have that additional feature event coming up after this one as well, where we'll have a starting grid based off of the results from the sprint race, but with the top 8 reversed. So that's what we have to look forward to at the moment. The driver in P8 at the moment is, of course, David Williams. So if your race ended now, he would be pole position for the feature.
We're going to look now at the 50 of Peter Berryman, trying to hold on to a top 5. Berryman with not the best of luck as of late as he battles with Bobby Zelensky, who currently sits in P4. Zelensky needs those points on that cut line, Connery. Yes, he's above it, but only by a handful of points. 4th place points here in the sprint race going to be good for Bobby Zelensky as he tries to hold on. Berryman 6/10 back. Might have an opportunity to make a move if he can close in, but it looks like Berryman is a little bit more pressured from Sam Kiechert than Berryman is putting on Zelensky right now.
It does seem to be the case. So 3 cars in the line for P number 4 at the moment. We've got a whole bunch of cars down on towards pit lane, by the way. We have more retirements than I've ever seen in a race like this one. Let's just say that. I'm counting about 11 cars on pit lane involved in that lap 1 incident, which is absolutely crazy. It's about, it's well over a third of the field.
And with those drivers in the pit lane, Roger Christensen goes spinning around in P16, but we stay on the battle here at the front. With those drivers who are, and there's a good look at Christensen there, as he spins, believe that is on the front straightaway. Yes, it is. That is coming out of the final corner. Easy place to spin, Connery, when you're getting on that throttle, spinning the tires a little bit too much for that 71. But those drivers in the pit lane, a couple of them are drivers who are going for that cut line. Specifically, Ian Sean Guvin, who was the driver who is 2 points below the cut line, trying to chase down Bobby Zelensky. He is in the pit lane right now, P26. So this is going to be a gift for a lot of the drivers above the cut line. As we look at the Vodafone replay of Roger Christiansen, was it a little bit of contact with his Fox Gaming teammate? I'm not sure if that helped the 71 get turned around, but it looked a little bit close.
It got a little bit of a bump, but again, you're kind of half right as well with the whole traction situation coming out of that final turn. Such a slow speed corner, and you have no traction control in these cars, of course, so you do have to modulate the throttle coming off the corner to make sure you don't leave a cloud of smoke behind you and get unstable and find the wall. It's so easy to do here at Long Beach, but lap 6 of 13 at the moment, getting towards the halfway stage of sprint racing here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series, the 33 down on towards pit lane. That is Alexei Nesov, who was involved in that opening incident. In fact, it was the second car that was going around, but it seems like he has a little bit too much damage to continue at this stage. So that's why he's brought that car back on towards pit lane. And there's the 22 who's been pretty beat up here. That's Jordan Caruso, which was the other car that got initially spun through that first sector for the first time. So there's a lot of beat up cars. We have about, well, over a third of the cars in the pit lane and a decent couple on track still trying to limp around with damage.
Battle for fourth continues with Zelensky, Berryman, and Keeter. Right now, with that cut line changing a little bit, with Ian Sean Guvin being in the pit lane, giving Zelensky a little bit more breathing room when it comes to this sprint race. He can really focus now on just trying to maximize the amount of points and maximize his finish at the end of this sprint. A little bit of pressure taken off just for the moment. That could change in the future. The points are always changing. They could change with the drop weeks as well. But right now, Zelensky has a little bit of pressure off because he knows guaranteed he will make up time to that cut line here. So we get a good look at Sam Keizer fighting from P6.
Yeah, great view with the clatters the curb a little bit too much there. The seems like the front end of the car just came up off the ground, but thankfully he had enough space on the left-hand side there to be able to take a little bit of a wider line and not hit the wall. Any harsher over that curb, though, then we might have seen Keeter bang the wall and maybe knock the suspension, knock the wheel out of line, and that would be the end of his race. But thankfully, he's still out there with us as we look back towards the very front of the field, because Matti Sippola has kept Alessandro Pico honest here, hasn't let him get away at all, has kept that gap within about 6-7 tenths of a second, giving him all the chances needed to be able to at least have a look in these final couple of laps. Not quite close enough just yet to be threatening, but sometimes just being there is all you need to try and put the driver in front off their game.
And he is close. He's within 5 tenths. And normally, Connery, I'd say, you know, he's within a striking distance to be able to make a pass for the lead. I think that changes a little bit now that we're here at Long Beach. You need to be aggressive to make passes here because you cannot make a safe pass anywhere on this track. As we look at the driver who is trying to catch up to the top two right now, Cooper Webster in the number 37. Really, a lot of Long Beach is waiting for the driver in front of you to make a mistake, and then you can easily try and get by them. If you try and make moves, you have to be aggressive to get side by side, or else you're going to stay in that same position that you are in. Just the way this track races and the fact that it is so tight, you can see it. It's only about 3 lanes wide as they race down East Seaside Ways. We go still on the Vodafone onboard with Cooper Webster.
Yeah, Webster has a great view of the 2 cars ahead of him, but those 2 cars not battling just yet. Again, not close enough. The separation in this little 3-car trio at the very front of the field is, you notice that he has to take his hand off the wheel to be able to negotiate that final turn, you know, because he has to put in so much steering input that just crossing the arms just is impractical. You have to sort of do the whole either shuffling if you have a 4-wheel, or just take your handle completely off if you have a GT or a Formula style wheel like that one. So it's interesting to see.
And you can see the IndyCar drivers when you're on board with them here at Long Beach, they're going full lock on that wheel. Same way these drivers are here in these Porsches. Is the battle for first on the top of your screen, battle for fourth on the bottom of your screen. Berryman is putting a lot of pressure, a bit more pressure than I think I was expecting Peter Berryman to put on Bobby Zelensky right now. He's close, but needs to be aggressive to make that move. And I don't think at this stage, especially with these drivers knowing what happened on lap number 1, don't think they're really willing to be super aggressive. Berryman is comfortable with a 5th place finish. He sits 8th in the points right now, middle of the ways to the cut line. Don't think he's willing to get aggressive for one more spot on this racetrack, especially at Long Beach, where it's very easy to lead to contact when you make an aggressive pass on the driver in front.
A pass would be much more valuable if we were in the main race instead. Remember, it's double points for the main race compared to the sprint race. It's only 25 for a race win in the sprint. It's 50 for a race win in the main. So, but the thing is, you know, it's all about trying to balance out those sorts of options, because if Sipler does go through and win this race, he'll be starting just that one position back in the main race, which is its own disadvantage. I would argue you prioritize the track position here.
Definitely, and I think a lot of the drivers do want those points. They want to get a little bit more comfortable going into the Nürburgring, that they know that they are in the Super Cup for 2022. They don't have to go into the Nürburgring sort of wondering if they are safe. They kind of just want to be safe coming out of Long Beach. So I think a couple of these drivers might try and prioritize that. They might try and say, okay, let me maximize my points from Long Beach so I am completely safe going into the Nürburgring. As Sam Keizer, Alexander Volters continue to fight. David Williams and that Coanda number 31 starting to catch up, Connery. We could see a 3-car battle for 6 here soon. And David Williams, another one of those drivers trying to catch up in the points or trying to move his way further up. He sits 4th.
I don't know if Williams even wants to pass these two because he's in pole position right now for the main race. So the best seat in the house for the main at a track where it's relatively difficult to try and overtake. And, well, if you do try to go for an overtaking move, you're just about have an equal chance of finding yourself in the wall than actually getting past the driver ahead of you. So I think the game plan for Williams here, just sit back in the P8 there. You know, there's no need to be able to be chasing those positions further ahead. Make sure you get yourself the best starting spot possible in the main event. There's a bit of a swap between two cars there. That's Alexander Volters actually getting through on Sam Keita, and Keita just letting it happen.
And talking about that inverse grid pole, Connery, I just went and looked back in the last couple of results from the first 4 rounds of the season. In the last 2 rounds from Road Atlanta and Barcelona, the inverse grid pole sitter won the feature race. In the first 2 rounds of the season, it was the driver who started in 2nd place. So right now, 2nd place after the invert for the feature will be Sam Keizer, and pole position will be David Williams. We're on board with both right now, and on board on the top box on the InSim car with David Williams, trying to catch up to Keizer. Looking at the stats, relatively even when it comes to starting on the front row. But we know if you start on the front row, you have a really good chance at walking away with the feature race win.
Especially here. But here we go. There's the lead group. There's Biko, Sipler, and Webster. They're getting just that little bit closer and closer as this race draws itself to a close. We've got 2 to go coming across the line. Sipler has a run of speed down in towards turn number 1, but it's not going to be enough to make anything happen down into there. And you don't really particularly want to go side by side through turn number 1 due to that wall on the right-hand side that can catch cars out. But as they work their way through the fountain section now, swinging those machines into turn 5, getting as close to the left-hand side wall as they dare. As you saw, Sipler taking the right-hander there, just that little bit wider than Alessandro Biko took it. Biko cutting across the curb just that little bit more as they scythe their way through this middle sector. Now we're on board with Matti Sipler with the Vodafone on board, and we've just seen, actually, if you saw on the tower, there's a bit of a scrap between Berryman and Zelensky further back through the order. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how that one works out. But the race leaders are also, well, threatening a show.
And with white flag this time by, and there's a lap traffic getting out of the way, just barely, Connery, but they are able to get through. Webster falling a little bit back from this battle, as that was Ayanchan Guvin over to the outside, who has gained a couple more spots for points. He's currently P20. There's the white flag. 1 lap to go. Don't think Sipple is close enough unless he's willing to get aggressive for this sprint race win.
Nope, not going to be there down in towards turn number 1. So that's one opportunity gone away for Matti Sippler, keeping an eye on those battles a little bit further back as well, but it doesn't look like anything's going to happen with them either. Through the fountain section, Sippler just trying to push the nose of that Cova Porsche into the rear bumper of the Williams car ahead of him. Here's the ride on board from the rear view of Alessandro Pico with this Vodafone on board. He started in pole position. He looks to try to finish this race in first and then, well, gets the bad end of the reverse grid for the feature event, but there's a chance that he can work his way through the field there. It's going to be very tough, but you never say never, especially with the instance that we've seen so far here in this one with especially with lap number 1. But coming towards the final portion of the race then, down in towards turn number 9, now in towards turn number 10. Still no opportunities here for the moment as they work their way into the final corner. There's going to be no desperate lunge from Matti Sippler behind to try and squeeze his way through. They get the traction off the corner. It's the 77 Williams Esports car of Alessandro Pico that comes across the line to win the sprint race at Long Beach.
You could see the relief on his face. He wanted that sprint race win badly. Crosses the line. Alexander Volters comes by. Sam Keitzert, David Williams. That's going to be your inverse grid pole position as we get a look at the 66. Jovigard Gotterstad fighting off Josh Thompson. And it looks like that 11th position is going to go to the 66 Fox Gaming car.
There is the number 66 coming through the final corners now as Gotterstad has had a pretty good day. I think he's one of those drivers that picked his way through on that opening instant. He started in 25th position. He finishes now in 11th. So that's fantastic stuff there from Gotterstad. Here's the unofficial race results then. We've got Alessandro Pico winning the sprint race with Sippler in second, Cooper Webster in third, Peter Perriman fourth, Zelensky in fifth, picking up a good couple of points for his top 15 effort in the points. We've got Alexander Volters in P6, and then, of course, our reverse grid pole position sitter will be David Williams. Jack Sedgwick, P9, with Quentin Villolate in P10. You've got Gotterstad, our big mover in this race, in P11 with Josh Thompson, P12. Caruso, 13th. Christensen, 14th. Halliburton, 15th, with Lockwood, 16th. Streecher, 17th. Nessov, 18th. And you can see the rest of the order heading their way through on the screen. Lots and lots and lots and lots of retirements here, Josh, due to that lap 1.
And unfortunate to see for a lot of the drivers that especially were also underneath that cut line when they came into this race. But we are now standing by with Alessandro Pico. Alessandro, what a sprint race for you. It looked like that car was handling well. Same thing inside the sim rig tonight?
Yeah, thank you. This track is very crazy and very difficult. Fortunately, the start was good and the pace was good until the finish. The last three laps was very difficult for the tire, but yeah, I managed good, I think, and now will be the difficult part with 26 laps.
Yeah, and the feature race is coming up. Of course, double the distance of the sprint, but you're also going to be starting down in P8 with that inverse. Where's the confidence level at that you can climb your way up through the field, and how challenging is it going to be for you in the Williams Esports car to climb your way up through the field and try and walk away with your second feature race win of the season?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Will be very, very difficult. Let's see to be, I don't know, maybe top 5. Let's see. I don't know.
We look forward to seeing you race in the feature, Alessandro. Thanks for joining us here during the warm-up, and good luck in the feature race coming up.
Thank you.
Connery, great to hear from Alessandro Pico. You can hear him a little bit out of breath there. Just goes to show, even in the sim rigs, how physical it is here around Long Beach.
It is such a demanding track for the drivers, and well, if you want to get yourself involved and to get information on the Porsche esports that happens here on iRacing, for more information on the schedule, standings, and how to become a driver in the series, log on to iRacing.com/Supercup today. If you think you have the chance to get yourself into the top level of iRacing here on display, we've got, of course, more information on how to start your iRacing career. Log on to iRacing.com today as well, because you know, it's been a simulator that I've been involved in for many years at this point, and many on the broadcasting level as well. It just goes from strength to strength as we'll have a look at the highlights from the sprint race. And well, I guess the first one won't be so much a highlight as it was a low light for a lot of the drivers.
And there it is, the huge pile up off of the fountain. One driver going up into the air, landing on his side, and just a parking lot over there. And you can see so many cars, absolutely nowhere to go. There's a tap from teammate Gotterstad over to Christiansen, and then he hit the gas a little bit too hard coming off of the final corner, spins those tires and spins his way around. We saw some good battles throughout the midfield as well. Connery and David Williams was on a tear to try and get up into the top 8. Exactly what he did. He'll be starting on the pole position here for the feature after the invert.
Yes, he will. And then it was a story of the trio that never fought at the very front of the field. They just weren't quite close enough to each other to challenge side by side, just like these guys did at the very end of the race. But that was more of an easy position, being picked up by the number 66 of Goddestad over the number 51 of Josh Thompson. But it was a little bit, well, calm towards the end of the race there. Certainly a race of polar opposites, with the first race and the first lap and the last lap being so different. But now we have to look to the main race because we have yet another start, of course. I'm hoping and praying we don't get the same monumental issues that we had into the fountain section in this particular race. I'm crossing my fingers.
I think a couple of the drivers might have figured out exactly what happened there, and they might try and avoid it. But at the end of the day, every driver's looking for positions on the racetrack. Every driver is looking to gain that one spot that is going to help them. So it is going to be very difficult for these drivers to do it. And here's exactly where we are. We'll take another look at this Long Beach street circuit. You can see just all of the tight corners. Most of the corners on this track are 90 degrees or more, and with bumps all around, with it being real city streets here at the Long Beach port. A very tight turn 11 in the final corner on the run down the front straightaway of East Shoreline Drive. This is a very, very difficult racetrack. And Connery, I mentioned it during the sprint race, how we have not had a winner of the feature start from other than the front row. Don't think that'll be broken here today, but we're just a couple moments away from finding out.
I think the trend that will continue with regards to the a new feature race winner, possibly once again. We haven't had a repeat of that over the course of this season. There's the reminder of the format here today, as just briefly there on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. We have 26 laps as the feature race. That's double the length of the sprints, as here's the starting grids then for this main race. David Williams, reverse grid, pole position for the driver of the number 31 Coanda car. We have Sam Keated in the second, Volters third, Slensky fourth, Berryman fifth, and Cooper Webster starting in 6th place here today. We look further down the order. We've got, of course, Cooper Webster and Matti Sippler down P6, P7. We got Alessandro Bico starting in 8th. So that was your race winner from the sprint race. Everyone else is as they came across the line in the sprint race. So we look back to Jordan Caruso, who's starting 13th. He started 3rd in the sprint race. Of course, he got himself involved in lap 1 issue through the first sector. We got Christiansen starting 14th, Halliburton 15th. Brian Lockwood starting 16th here today, so looking to continue on his forward progress that he's been making so far this race. He's got Moreno Sarica in 17th place, Alexei Nesov 18th, Lombardi 19th, Guven will start in 20th place, and then you see those drivers towards the very back of the field. Julian Sonnen there right at the very back. Of course, he started 5th in the sprint race, and now he's down in 26th to start the main. Oscar Biscuit and Laurent Benso will be the final row of the starting grid here today, as drivers slowly but steadily getting themselves ready. Once again, we have about 30 seconds before we are feature race racing in California once again. Any expectations here for this one, Josh, or are we going to see the same situation as what we saw in the sprint?
Think we might see maybe what we saw in the sprint, maybe on a lesser scale. I don't think it'll be exactly the complete track blockage that we saw out of the fountain corner in the sprint race, but I do think we're going to see a lot of the drivers, especially that were caught up in that initial incident in the sprint race, try and claw their way up towards the front to get the maximum amount of points that they can out of this feature race, especially with only one more round glaring at them.
Those engine notes will rise then here for the final time at Long Beach as we go 26 laps of feature race racing at Long Beach. We're underway as drivers swarm their way down in towards turn number 1 now. We'll get ourselves a breakaway for the race lead. That's David Williams. He's clear by a couple of tenths of a second down in towards turn number 1. Keatit and Zelensky battling side by side into there. We've got 3 wide, deeper in the pack. Zelensky drops behind Keatit as we do have a bit of an issue there through the first couple of corners. Now through the fountain section. Is anyone going to be spread eagle across the racetrack? I'm not seeing any. We've done better than the sprint.
Looked like one driver got turned around heading into the fountain corner. Everybody good to go now as they race down West Shoreline Drive into turn 6 and 7. A little bit of a side-by-side moment. A little bit further on back. That is the 71 to the outside of the 69. Christiansen versus Saricha for P15 as the 16 machine. Alexander Volters, he was that driver that got turned around at the start of the fountain corner. Huge damage to the front end of that machine.
You're not as it rolled off the showroom floor, is that Porsche. You can probably get a decent sum for it in the second-hand parts, spares and repairs market. But yeah, that is not a healthy RHE Esports car. Trying to limp its way around the course as, oh, someone gets shoved off. There's another RHE Esports car, I believe. It was the number 25 of Vlad Kimichev having a bit of an issue. And you can see the 16 now pulling off the circuit, trying to let everyone by through the hairpin. And, well, just continuing on, actually doesn't dive it down on towards the pit lane. But there's the order at the end of lap number 1. Williams from Keatit, from Zelensky, from Berryman, from Sipler, from Webster, from Biko. Violate there down in P8 here for the moment. But let's have a look at the race start then. And in particular, that run through the first couple of corners. Less issues than the sprint race. But, of course, some drivers did get caught out.
3 wide for a moment. There's Volters getting moved off, and that's the 13 machine that got spun at the initial start. That's Dino Lombardi, who got spun over into the runoff area. He was back on the track as second verse, same as the first Connery. We saw this in the sprint race. We're seeing it in the feature as Bobby Zelensky, Peter Berryman go sparring, except this time their positions are swapped the other way around.
Yeah, and Sipler got a good run off the corner there. He might be able to challenge down in towards turn number 9. Late on the brakes is that Kova car, challenging the apex driver of Peter Berryman. He's going to be on the outside, though, for the left-hander. It's going to be so close between the two of them. Into the hairpin as Sipler looks to go and go a long way around. Takes the apex, well, very wide, and he gets turned from behind. Webster into the back of him. Stacks everyone up behind as we'll get wheel-to-wheel with Biko and Violate as a result.
Webster poked that nose to the inside in turn 11, and it ended up bad for the 17 of Matty Sipola. It goes way down the order to P24 now. Webster had to go for it. He saw an opening to the inside of turn 11, tried to go for that move, and unfortunately it ended up bad for the 17. Here's the Vodafone replay going down into turn 11 on board with Alessandro Biko in the 77. You can see the side-by-side moment. Crossover comes out from Sipola, and Webster was there whenever Sipola came down to try and cut across the racetrack. Turns the 17 around. Sipola now gonna have to fight from P24 on the racetrack.
I'm pretty sure Webster and Biko got contact from every single corner of their car in that stack up there through the hairpin turn at the very end of the lap. So any damage they've incurred through that, well, they'll have to carry it now for the rest of the 26 lap race distance. So unfortunate, but hopefully it doesn't affect them too much. But yeah, Sipler falling down the order, of course, had to take the tow back to pit lane. The battles continue, though. Race lead still relatively close between Williams and Keatit. We've also got this big stack up once again through the final corner in the battle for 6th place. You can see Biko just briefly there flashing his lights, not happy with the 81 car ahead of him of Quentin Violate. Maybe he's complaining that he's just that little bit slow through the final corner.
And that battle for the lead not changing too much, but Keitert is catching up. He's close to David Williams. Not close enough to really make a move just yet as we go on board with Jack Sedgwick, who's currently sitting in P number 8, up 1 spot from where he started. That Stockport United Kingdom driver looking for more spots as the sprint race winner, Alessandro Biko, sits up in front of him. You can take a look out of that front windshield on his Porsche. Ooh. And Biko's going to take a peek to the inside. Violate goes wide, and up in a P6 goes the 77.
Yeah, that was Biko just showing the nose, and Violate just not really knowing what to do with it. He just left the space on the inside, and it was all the space that Biko needed to try and get himself through. So Biko up another position here today, up into 6th from starting 8th place on the starting grid. So this is looking like a very good points day for Alessandro Biko. But back towards the very front of the field, because we have the Dutch driver from Racecraft Esports of Sam Kietert still locked onto the back of David Williams. Of course, from Contender, he's British, but resides in Germany, of course, in that Contender team house. Of course, Contender, not the only team that has a team house in sim racing anymore. We've got news of the Altus house in Australia as well. So that's fantastic stuff for those guys. But for Kietert now, just focusing on the car ahead at the moment. Still a long way to go, but if he really feels that the track position is so valuable, he wants to get ahead sooner rather than later.
And you can see the difference in these drivers using track limits. David Williams stayed a little bit more to the outside of that curbing. Kietert basically went right over the curbing, trying to maximize all the track limits he possibly can. As we look off the back of David Williams on the Vodafone onboard, Kietert can get close. He can get very close to making that move, but he only gets close in the apex of the corner. And we know, Connery, through the apex of the corner, especially these very short 90-degree corners here at Long Beach, it's too late to make a move if you're close enough to do it in the apex of a corner. So he needs to get close off of one of these lawn straightaways to make a move before they go into the apex, but very difficult to do because you can see off the exit of the corner, Williams pulls away, not enough of a slipstream for Kietert to be able to catch on back.
Not at all. They're both pulling away from Berryman, though, so they're leaving him in their dust. As maybe Berryman just trying to save a little bit here in the beginning portions of the race. Maybe he'll be coming into it a little bit more in the latter portions, because remember, this race is double the length of the sprint, so the tire issues, the tire wear, and the usage becomes more apparent in the latter laps here in the main race than it does in the sprint race. Of course, it's not a huge, massive issue. Oh my God, I'm on the edge with regards to the tires. I feel like I'm going to fall off the car at any moment. It's just that wear of a couple of tenths of a second that really does make the difference sometimes.
And you mentioned the couple of tenths that just makes a difference sometimes. It can go down to hundredths. It can go down to thousands. As long as you're catching up to the driver in front, you will have an opportunity to make that move. And Kietert, unfortunately, now kind of stalling out. He's not getting any closer to Williams, but here comes Peter Berryman. I'm interested to see what Berryman will do when he catches this lead group. So we look at a battle for 12th. Alexei Nesov, Roger Christiansen, Joshua Anderson, Marina Saricha, all in this fight. A lot of these drivers need some solid points. They're either outside of the cut line or nowhere even near the cut line, and they need a miracle to make it above that top 15. As one driver looked like they went wide there on the final corner, Connery.
Yeah, I think someone stuck the nose down the insides there, as we're riding on board with the 13th place driver of Roger Christiansen. He's got a pretty decent amount of, a gap ahead of him to Alexei Nesov. It's the drivers behind him, arguably, that are a little bit closer, but you can just see him focusing on the task ahead, just not even really blinking, of course, communicating with his teammates to try and gain a wider picture of the race. And I've just noticed all those trophies at the very top of his cabinet there. That's nice. That's just nice.
He likes to show off all the achievements he's had. I don't know if that's in sim racing solely or real life racing at that, but clearly winning a lot of awards. He is one of pretty good driver if it's in real life or if it's off the racetrack in the sim. But look at this battle. They're getting so close for second place right now. But Berryman, you can see him trying to get any way around Sam Kietert, but no passing zone through this final couple of corners here at Long Beach. He had an opportunity there, but Kietert great on the defense to protect it through turn 11. Look at this close battle as they go through the final corner. Battle for 16th. Brian Lockwood trying to hold off. He locks up the brakes as they go into the corner.
Oh, and Grabowski almost got squeezed into the wall there by Vlad Kimachev as both of them took the exit of that final turn pretty wide. Grabowski looking threatening at this stage in the number 95. Looking either which way down in towards turn 1, but not committing to any sort of move just yet. Just that little bit too far behind. Needs to be another tenth of a second or so closer. Well, he's got that through the fountain section, but the fountain section is not a place where you can make passes. We're on lap number 8 of 26 here in the main race of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. The top 15 in terms of points from this season get themselves booked into the next season of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. What has happened to Christiansen ahead? Because it seems like Christiansen's now involved in a bit of a battle behind as we continue to look at Kimmich and Grabowski.
Both of them fighting in P17 right now. Grabowski, another one of those drivers. He's P20 currently in the points. Needs to throw a little bit of a Hail Mary to try and get above that cut line. Kimmich, another one of those drivers who is just looking for any possible points that he can get to work his way just a little bit closer to that cut line. As they continue to battle for P17, a long train starting to develop here, Connery, as they all race down the front straightaway. A couple of close battles, including the battle for the lead that has not changed hands yet, and Berryman hasn't been able to get by Keizer yet.
Yeah, I mean, Berryman has indeed caught up the little gap that we saw appear a little bit earlier on of around about a second or so. So he's certainly still within contention as far as the race lead is concerned. Everyone all still stacked up in their trains. This is what we didn't see over the course of the sprint race due to that incident on lap number 1 in that event. The trains weren't really able to establish because they got derailed in the first couple of corners. But now we have a race on. We have some battles up and down the field. This is what racing should be like here in this series, and I am all here for it. As we'll see the leading group down in towards the first sector, towards the final sector, excuse me, on this track. We got side by side behind. So this is number 71 of Christiansen with Brian Lockwood on the brakes in towards turn number 1. Lockwood's leaving the space here. They're side by side behind between Kimmich and Grabowski as well as they head in towards the final couple of corners. Door to door through the final corner can be pretty sketchy. Let's see if they get through that unscathed. Christiansen out wide, door-to-door contact with the car on his inside there. That was Grabowski as they will continue on the battle all the way down the pit straight here, all the way down in towards turn number 1 in a couple of moments time. Multiple instances of wheel to wheel. We've got Grabowski in that front battle around the outside of Christiansen. Who dares break the latest on the brakes into turn number 1? Oh, they've gotten through unscathed as Grabowski's ahead of Christiansen, is still battling behind as well. A puff of smoke into the fountain section as they all get themselves single file.
That was close to an incident a couple of times during that battle there, Connery, but they fortunately all make it through clean. And Christiansen, you mentioned him falling back a little bit, trying to claw his way back through in that number 71 machine for Fox Gaming. Look at this close battle. Right on the back bumper of Elvis Ronkin is Dino Lombardi right now. Lombardi made a peek to the inside. Could not get there by the time they reached the apex for turn 8. Remember, Dino Lombardi pretty successful so far this season in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. Feature race winner in round number 1, and he is going to get a little bit of a challenge from Oscar Bixrud now as they go through the final couple of corners.
Well, if you look at his, it's just a big sack up through the final corner, isn't it? There's the front of the field battle, though. This is on board with your race leader. In fact, this is David Williams from Halton in the Channel Islands. Well, originally, of course, lives in Germany now, as I do have to point out every single time I mention him. It's a bit of a running joke. But looking back at that number 14 car of Sam Kietert, as we even have the special note on the top right of the graphic there. That's fantastic. But for Williams, though, reverse grid pole position, has maintained the race lead coming in towards the end of the first half of the race. He's been going pretty well for him so far, but Kietert is continuing to hold him to the flame somewhat.
And Connery, you know me, I love my stats, so if David Williams holds on to this race lead, which is getting a bit of a challenge right now from Sam Kietert. Kietert moves up to the outside, cannot make that pass happen. But if Williams is to win this race, it'll be the 3rd feature race in a row where the inverse grade pole sitter did win it. Here comes Berryman to the outside for second place. No crossover can be performed, but now with this battle, a couple more drivers starting to join in the lead fray.
Williams, Keatit, Berryman in that order still, but that was the first signs of life as far as a battle is concerned between the three of them. You've got Webster and Biko on the outside looking in on this one as well, but things will stabilize just that little bit more through turn number 1 this time around. But if that was a sign of things to come, then you'll want to stay tuned for the second half of this race, because it could end up being completely and utterly bananas for the front of this field as push comes to shove at the end. As Williams, I don't know if that was Williams going wide or Keatit just trying to cut the corner a little bit.
Trying to maximize all the track limits they possibly can, as we have 2 Vodafone replays on deck. First one is an incident with Bobby Zelensky. We'll see what happened to the number 83 through the fountain corner. And ooh, a little bit of a tap from the Altus machine behind him. That's Cooper Webster. Alessandro Biko joins in and goes right on by him. And then the 33 of Alexei Nesov up and on the curbing and into the tire barrier. Barely missing him, I believe. Not making any contact was Joshua Anderson there in the 36. Doesn't look like he has any damage to that Porsche, so barely getting avoiding the incident. And take a look at the shoving coming through the final corner now, Connery.
It's starting to get physical for those podium positions. Oh my word, we've still got half the race to go here in this one, and these guys are getting all over each other already. In towards turn number 1 again, you know, due to that huge stack up through the final corner, none of them close enough to each other to be able to threaten any moves down in towards 1. But this stage has been set rather well here, Joshua. If these drivers are going to hound each other like that, then who knows what type of racing we'll get to see a little bit later on. Remember, there's drivers deeper in this train that'll be seeing this as an opportunity as well.
And remember when we had 2 drivers up here in the fight for the lead, then it became 3 with Berryman. Now I believe we're up at about 5 or 6 that realistically have an opportunity. Take a look. The aggressive move. Cooper Webster to the inside of Berryman. Berryman goes for a crossover. They're going to drag race down East Seaside Way into turn number 9. Berryman on the inside trying to come back at Cooper Webster. I don't think he's going to have enough. Webster with the inside advantage. He will grab that spot. Now here comes Alessandro Biko to fight straight up with Berryman, but missing the corner is Webster and into the tire barrier.
Yeah, just the slightest of taps to the rear end is all it needs and spits Webster out into the, well, it's not even a runoff there. He has to slam on the brakes to avoid hitting the wall. That's not how he wanted that particular battle to end. It was just the slightest of contacts, and you can see the flashing the lights in frustration there from Webster. Maybe that's that's Josh Thompson getting himself out of the way in that situation. He wants nothing to do with that entire situation, but again, front to rear contact through the hairpin. How many times have we seen it? We'll get to see the Vodafone replay here in just a couple of moments. There it is. Let's see what happens side by side through the final sector. It takes a lot of skill and a lot of awareness to make this work.
And here is that contact, just barely to the back end of Cooper Webster. Maybe there was contact there, Connery, but it did also look like Webster overshot that corner a little bit. Elvis Ronkin with an issue as he goes through turn 4 and contact with, I believe, was that Dino Lombardi in the 13 that he made contact with?
Might have been certainly a Leah Racing Team car, but 13 laps to go. Yeah, it was Lombardi involved in that incident. We're back to the head of the train then, as I believe it was Keatit just trying to find some alternate lines through the final corner to try and find any sort of advantage over Williams. He's even laying on the flashy light button as well as to try and gain psychological advantage, I would say. I know that's a bit of a meme in racing, but I'll say it anyway. 12 laps to go here at Long Beach for the feature event, and Williams and Keatit as close as ever. Berryman dropping off the back of these a little bit, and as he has Biko to contend about behind, that's our sprint race winner.
Vodafone replay, bottom of your screen. That's Vlad Kimichev, who overshot turn 8 and slams into the tire barrier. He towed it back into the pit lane. The 25 goes into P23 now on the racetrack and in the pit lane. But battle for the lead, Connery. David Williams showing his might at the front. And I was expecting this a little bit from David Williams. Obviously, been one of the most consistent drivers this season. Sits 4th place in the points, but I don't believe yet this season he has walked away with a sprint race win or a feature race win for that matter. He's looking for his first one here and going right back to the stat book. If he were to win this feature race, not only would it be the 3rd race in a row, that would be the driver who started in the inverse grid poll, would also be the 5th unique winner of the season in the feature.
Let's take a couple of laps here just to take a little bit of a break from the commentary. We'll bring you iRacing Full Throttle. Let's listen to those cars. Well, that was a listen in then at these Porsche 991 Cup cars here. Of course, they will be superseded by the 992 variant very soon here on iRacing. You can already release it on the iRacing service, but hasn't yet made an appearance in the esports competition here just yet on the iRacing platform. But soon is all I'll say. Main race though, 9 to go here in the penultimate round of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series, and it is crunch time a bit for those drivers at the very front of the field. Williams has pulled away by about 0.7 of a second on that huge train behind. For more information on how you can get involved in the iRacing platform, go on to iRacing.com today to get yourself a new membership. Usually there are deals going on there with regards to new memberships, so you don't have to spend as much to get yourself started here on iRacing as you would have thought. But Josh, in this race, well, I guess we're just kind of setting up now for the final couple of laps.
Definitely are, and I think a couple of these drivers want to get themselves into a little bit of a better position, because I do think Peter Berryman has the best car that is in this line. Alessandro Bico is another one of those drivers who is fast, faster than David Williams and Sam Kiteser in terms of best lap time. And last time by, Berryman was faster than David Williams by about 100th of a second. This is all the top runners that we have right now. You can put a blanket over, I believe, the top 6 now that run through turns number 4 and 5 here from Virtual Long Beach. They are all chasing down David Williams, however, and look at Biko trying to mix it up for the podium. He talked about in the warm-up interview that he was just hoping for a top 5. He's looking for a little bit more now.
Yeah, it's been a pretty positive race so far for Biko, especially given he won the sprint race, which gave him the absolute worst end of the reverse grid, starting P8 in the main, but he's been able to make up a couple of positions, and but podium isn't outside of the realms of possibility here. He has Berryman just ahead of him. Williams has been doing very good at managing the gap back to these guys, by the way, over the past couple of laps. He just had that something a little extra over Keitert and Berryman and Biko as he continues to try and pull away here. And well, as long as he keeps it around about that gap, he's not really going to be under threat into the final couple of laps of this race. Maybe Keitert has taken a little bit too much out of his tires so early on, trying to fight.
And as we continue with the Vodafone on board with Peter Berryman, you can see him trying to get up to those front guys. Just becomes so difficult, especially when up at the front, the speeds kind of start to level out. A lot of these drivers are fairly even when it comes to speed, so it gets even more difficult to catch that driver in front. You need to wait for them to make a mistake. This could be Berryman's gift here as Keitert goes a little bit too far to the inside through turn 5, excuse me. Could not make that pass happen. And Berryman has a lot of pressure from Alessandro Biko behind him, who currently sits P4 as well. Would not be surprised if we see Alessandro Biko try and go for that spot on the number 50 machine.
Violate a little bit further back in this train in 6th place. He has a bit of damage to the front right of his Porsche, but is still able to keep tabs on all of these guys in the leading group for the moment. So Violate doing a fantastic job despite the punched up Porsche, as would be describing the front end of that car. But into the hairpin then, as they all get nose to tail, and then it spreads out a little bit more coming off the corner as the acceleration comes into effect. Here's the onboard with Vodafone onboard with Alessandro Biko in 4th place for the moment. 6 laps to go here at Long Beach. No signs of any fighting here just yet. We had a little bit of a hint of it a little bit earlier on, but it's so tough to try and get yourself into a position. As here's the, well, further behind them, it's Moreno Suricha versus Goddestad. This is for 11th place as they head their way through turn number 1. And, well, Moreno Suricha maintaining P11 there over the number 66 car behind. Joshua Anderson there in 13th at the moment as well. He's done pretty well since the start of this race. He started in 21st and now resides in the, well, unluckiest of numbers, but lucky for Anderson at the moment.
Goddestad coming off of turn 5 there on the West Shoreline Drive, tapped the wall. Been interesting to see. He was able to keep that speed up, didn't lead to an incident. As we take a look, battle for the lead on the top of your screen, battle for 11th on the bottom. That battle for the lead has been about the same for the entire race, Connery. Wondering if we're going to see that bubble eventually burst and Sam Keitert try and make a pass on David Williams. Peter Berryman get into the mix as looks like Berryman might have overrun that final corner.
Just a little bit. Let's see what happens in that battle at the very top of your screen. There's the move down the inside on Goddestad from Anderson. They make contact door to door coming off the hairpin. Goddestad flashes the lights in frustration, and perhaps quite as understandably so, given that was a big lunge there from Anderson. You always have to leave the space, of course, as we'll continue to have a look at the very front of the field on that very top side of your screen. Williams' lead has really been reeled in now by Keitert, so maybe the race lead isn't so secure here for David Williams. Number 14 is going to give him a good run.
And Keitert able to get so close, but we've been mentioning it. You need to be where you are in the apex of the corner, about 20 feet back before you even commit to the corner. You need to be so close to be able to make that move work. He's just not able to get close enough down the straightaways. The 31 has some great straight line speed, great exit speed as well, to give him that slingshot onto these long straightaways here at Long Beach. We talk about these corners being tight. It is about all long straightaways leading in to each one of those corners. You need to have good straight line speed, exactly what Williams has as he tries to swerve down the front straightaway and down East Shoreline Drive, trying to hold off Sam Keitert, doing exactly that.
Let's have a look then into the final sector. 4 to go here at Long Beach, and well, Williams' lead has been cut down. Let's have a look at Williams' first sector here. He's leading this this train for the moment. Let's see if he's clean and tidy through here. You can't quite see him on the overhead view there, but you can now as he's got that Racecraft Esports car. Not so much all over the back of him just yet. It's getting close to that, though. Maybe we'll get to see a few desperate dives in the final couple of laps of this one. Not so much just yet. Of course, they want to make sure that they secure the position and not under threat from anyone else behind on any future laps. But in towards turn number 8 and down at the back straight that is Seaside Way. There's the battle behind them, a little bit far behind them actually, as it's Kamil Grabowski versus Brian Lockwood for P number 14 out there on circuit. They'll go wheel to wheel through turn number 8 here, and Grabowski getting the speed off the corner required to make that position secure. Maybe, oh, we're going to maybe see 3 wide, or potentially just the 2 in towards turn number 9 as Grabowski secures his position. He's got it on lockdown as Dino Lombardi's looking to try and get involved in that fight for 14th as well. It all gets a bit scrappy into the hairpin as Grabowski gets punted by Lockwood into the barrier, and Lockwood's having his own issues as well. 3 to go.
That is that bubble bursting. It didn't happen in the battle for the lead. It happened in the battle for 14th, and unfortunately getting turned around in turn 11. Battle for the lead continues to be commanded by David Williams. Sam Keitzer behind. Biko is all over the back bumper of Peter Behrman, wondering, Connery, when is he going to decide to try and go for this move? It looks like for the past couple of laps, Biko has had the opportunity to do it, but has been waiting in the wings, sitting in P4 right now. When is that aggression going to come out from the 77? And is he looking for a podium finish here? That'll be amazing, going from inverse grid, 8th place to the podium. We've only seen that a handful of times this season.
We'll see. We will see as they head their way through those final couple of corners here. We'll get 2 to go at the line. Battle for the race lead, battle for P3 potentially as well, as it all gets super sketchy through the hairpin once again as drivers take themselves different braking points, different lines. But in the end, it is all sorted out. 2 to go across the line. Who's close enough to threaten a move down in towards turn number 1? Zelensky might be tempted at going for this over Biko here, flashing the lights, looking, well, a little bit wider on the entry in towards turn number 1, but that's not going to gift him an opportunity to try and get himself past. Here's the Vodafone onboard with your race leader, then David Williams looking back at Keitzer. This potentially might get a little bit messy.
And then carries so much speed through that second sector, as losing a bit of time now is Sam Keitzer. He got a little bit too much on that curb, gets a little bit loose, falls back into the clutches of Peter Behrman. Here comes the 50 to try and fight for second place. Hasn't been too close. This is the closest he's been really in this battle in the latter half of this race to making a move for second place. You're on board with Behrman. What can he do on the 14? Steps to the outside. Keitzer gonna cover off that spot as they go into turn number 9. Nothing that Peter Behrman can do as we look off the back of the 14.
Yeah, Keitzer's line through turn 5. He always cuts across the inside there. You can gain a bit of time by doing that, but it's at the risk of having exactly what we saw happen, just having the car skip up over the curb, and you just, it loses all car control, and you have to back out of things to try and get the car more stable. And now that might be a gift to David Williams as far as this race lead is concerned. We're on the final lap here now at Long Beach, down in towards turn number 1, as we've been watching this leading pack for a long while. They've had their fair share of dramas, but how does it turn out in the final laps here? Biko looking as aggressive as ever in that bright green fronted Porsche, the number 77, looking to try and get himself on the podium after a fantastic sprint race win a little bit earlier on. On the way then down in towards turn 6 through this middle sector. Williams' gap is closing in again at the very front of the field, but I think it's going to be a little bit too little too late for Sam Keitzer to be able to make that one happen. Here's the fight between Behrman and Biko for P3 here on the way down the East Seaside Way for the final time into turn number 9. Any late moves on the brakes into turn 9? No, there isn't. It'll have to be the last ditch move in through the hairpin now. Is anyone close enough? Is anyone brave enough to do that down the inside there. No takers here in this one as they look to fight off the corner instead. David Williams looks like he's going to come across the line to win the main race here at Long Beach in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. Sam Keaton has to settle for second. Peter Berryman in third, as it got a bit sketchy for Keaton there coming off the final corner. He only just about got the traction down.
Connery, the 5th unique feature race winner of the season here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. The action continues to heat up, and we saw a lot of it here at Long Beach, but what a win for David Williams. He's been close so many times, has been so consistent this season. 4th place in the points, finally getting that trophy that he deserves.
Taking the parade lap then are those top drivers. We head into the Bose post-race show here from Long Beach, California in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup Contender Series. There are the unofficial results for the main race. Of course, stewards do have to look at a couple of the incidents that happened over the course of this race, but these are the results we have now. David Williams, P1, race win for Coanda with Sam Keaton in P2. Peter Berryman getting himself a podium there. Alessandro Bico with another fantastic race. Sprint race win and a P4 in the feature. That is a huge points haul to his tally. Bobby Zelensky getting a good finish as well inside the top 5. That'll help him out as far as the cut line is concerned, with Kenton Violate P6. Sedgwick and others further behind here in the results. Mariano Srika just missing out in terms of the top 10 here, as we'll quickly cycle our way through down to the retirements at the very tail end of the field. Biscuit Christensen involved in amongst a bunch of them. Walters, Halliburton, Laubish, Benso having problems here at the end of 26 laps of racing at Long Beach. Josh, you got yourself standing by, ready and waiting with our race winner for the feature event, David Williams.
David, welcome to the commentary booth. And how does it feel? First win for you this season. You've been so close. You have been consistent this season up at the front, but finally getting to the top step of the podium. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, I feel like the luckiest person in sim racing after today, to be honest. After that, how that panned out. I haven't even got my gloves off yet. Yeah, to be honest, I just feel relief more than anything. So it's nice to finally get a win in a top level series. It's been a long time, so yeah, feels really good.
And I mentioned that consistency that you were bringing to the table this entire season. Going into the Nürburgring, you're pretty safe when it comes to the points. You came into today 4th. This win is only going to help you out in the point standings. Is the mentality changing for the Nürburgring at all? Are you going to go a little bit more conservative, or is it going to be still going for those consistent finishes in Germany in 1 week's time?
Yeah, it'll be the same strategy. I mean, once I was on pole today, I was definitely driving in a conservative manner. I just really wanted to preserve the tires, to be honest. We managed to keep Kamer at bay, so I'm very happy about that, to be honest. Yeah, we'll be taking the same approach in terms of preparation to the next round. For whatever reason, I couldn't really find the pace in practice or in qualifying. I made some mistakes in qualifying today, but I got really lucky. So Nürburgring is definitely a better track for me. So yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us here on the Bose post-race show. David, congratulations on your race win.
Turn 5.
And now joining us here in the commentary booth, it is Sam Keitzert. 2nd place finish for you, Sam. And good finish while you're fighting for that cut line. How much are you focusing on that cut line coming into Long Beach and especially going into the Nürburgring, because you are pretty close to it?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it was pretty hard today. Like, overtaking is incredibly hard, and how much I'm looking to the cut line. Well, coming in here, I wasn't really focused on it. I was more focused to get finally a good quali in, and yeah, I finally have it. Not even a perfect lap, but in the top 8, that's the most important. And yeah, now I think we are closer. I don't know how close to the cut line. But yeah, Nürburgring, feeling comfy there always. So you got to push for it now.
Yeah, and talking about that strategy for the Nürburgring, mentioning that you're going to start really that push to try and get above that cut line. Are you going to change anything going into the final race of the Contender Series, or is it going to be sort of the same operation, same plan for you going into the final round, trying to get above that top 15?
Maybe a little bit more prep time for this one. Of course, I also got the Dallara Championship, which till Thursday most of the time goes into because we are a bit lacking pace there. And yeah, so maybe now for a week more focus to the Pickup to get a good result in there. And yeah, let's hope we can make it a good one at the Nürburgring.
Thank you for joining us at the Bose post-race show. Sam, congratulations on your second place here from Virtual Long Beach.
Yeah, thank you guys. See you next week, hopefully.
And we continue Bose post-race show coverage with Apex Racing Team's Peter Berryman, who joins us in the broadcast booth now. Peter, going into this race, obviously above that cut line, a little bit barely though, being in P8, but do you feel any pressure going into the Nürburgring now with this third place going to help you out a little bit more in the points so you have a little bit more of a cushion to that cut line going into the finale round?
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm going to show up to the last round, to be honest. I think coming into this round, I was roughly, I want to say maybe 60, 70 points clear of the cut. So, you know, with drops and things like that taken into account. So, yeah, no stress from me coming into this one. It's more just about trying to pick up some points to consolidate and managed to do that today. So, have to take a look at the points and see what I want to do for the last round if I want to get involved or not.
Of course, you're above that cut line, so looking like you're going to qualify for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup in 2022. Do these good finishes, these consistent finishes for you and the team give you any added momentum going into the Supercup next year?
I think it'd be a bit foolish if you take these results as any sort of weight going into the Supercup. It's a completely different pond of fish, you know. This is sort of kindergarten stuff this compared to the main championship. So could maybe take a little bit of momentum in terms of, you know, just the experience and stuff, but I think results and things like that, you'd be a bit silly to look too much into it that way.
Thank you for joining us in the Bose post-race show, Peter. Congratulations on your podium finish here from Virtual Long Beach.
Thanks, man.
Conor, great to hear from our top three finishers here in the Bose post-race show. And what a day we've seen here from Virtual Long Beach. Great racing in both the sprint and the feature, and a brand new winner here at the front of the field and at the top of the podium.
Another brand new winner of a feature event here in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. We knew it was going to be a tricky race here today, Joshua, not just, you know, in terms of how the track is run, but also those drivers that, you know, are desperately on the cut line trying to gain those points, making an already dangerous and sketchy racetrack even more interesting, shall I say. But in the end, we did get a fantastic main race out of it as well. We saw the battles up and down the field. Of course, it's unfortunate that leading train couldn't give us a little bit more of a show in that final lap. But of course, the opportunities are so slim to come by at Long Beach. We do have to look forward, though, Josh, to that final round, the finale of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup Contender Series. That's going to be taking place at the Nürburgring, same time, same place next week. Of course, the home of German auto racing, that, Josh. It's going to be a track that the drivers are very, very, very familiar with, and hopefully we'll get a good show there.
And I think it's a track that works great for these Porsches, right? I mean, you have that tight first corner, then you go into the arena section, a lot of flowing corners. Then you go race down long straightaways into other tight corners. You have a couple of chicanes to round out the lap. I think these Porsches really race well at the Nürburgring and at the Grand Prix circuit that we will be going to at the Nürburgring. So I think we're going to be in for a lot of great racing. And I do think we are going to see a little bit of different racing from the drivers who are above the cut line and a bit more aggression from the drivers under the cut line, because ultimately we're going into the Nürburgring. We still do not know what that cut line is going to look like. It can change from the beginning of the race at qualifying through the sprint race. It could change middle of the way through the feature. We're going to be waiting for that cut line to update. Nobody is really safe except for those drivers at the top half or that are locked in on points. Anybody that isn't currently locked in on points has an opportunity to get above or below that cut line right now.
And of course, in that situation, you have the elements of the drop week to be concerned about as well. In this series, your worst results over the course of the season will be completely erased from your record, just like it didn't happen. So for some drivers, it's really going to work out in their favor, especially if they only have one poor race in this season. They can just wipe that away. Didn't happen, and the points are reflected accordingly. But of course, for those drivers that have multiple bad races, it's not really going to work out in their favor. But while we get ourselves our points updated, ready to show you here live on the stream, we do, of course, have a little bit of a special guest. It is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Supercup commentator of Mr. Paul Smith. And Paul, you've been working behind the scenes here on these broadcasts as well. How was that?
Yeah, that was tremendous. I mean, the guys are really busy behind the scenes, just getting everything calculated, making sure that everything's correct before we give you updated points. But my goodness, what exciting, drama-filled racing that was here today. I mean, that was first race. My goodness. I mean, we were worried that we might get a track blockage, but we didn't expect it to be that big. That's for sure. But then the second race, seeing those drivers having to fight through and come through the field, fantastic stuff. Yes, it's difficult to overtake, but it's not impossible. Okay, a few of the drivers won't be happy with maybe one or two of the contacts that has happened here today, but my goodness, I'm not a fan of Long Beach personally as a track to drive. I do not get on with this as a track to drive on the sim, but to watch these guys, some of the best sim racers in the world, competing like that, absolutely brilliant, breathless.
Yep, and I'm just glad I got to use the word pandemonium. We're having a little bit of a joke behind the scenes before that one. That one's for you, Corey, on our audio. But Josh, that sets us up quite well for that final round, of course. For some drivers, they know they are above the cut line, and it's mathematically impossible for them to drop out of the cut line. So maybe the focus into that final round is going to be less trying to gain as many points as possible, and it's more just to have a little bit of fun as well. But you have that sort of duality of it. You have drivers that are looking to just have a bit of fun, and you're also having drivers looking to try and get as many points as possible to finish inside the top 15. I wonder how those two are going to clash.
I think those drivers that are mathematically good above that cut line are going to be a little bit less aggressive, maybe not really go for a lot of the moves that we've been seeing this season, but I definitely think the drivers that are below that cut line or trying to defend on the cut line are going to be aggressive. They're going to go for moves that we haven't really seen this season. We saw how aggressive Bobby Zelensky got 1 week ago at Road Atlanta when he was underneath the cut line, going 3 wide into the final chicane. Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of aggression from the drivers that are below that cut line, because ultimately getting above that top 15, every driver in this series wants to be in the Super Cup, and that top 15, their golden ticket.
And Paul, of course, the Nürburgring is a track where you can pull off those aggressive moves. I can only say 2 words: turn 1. That is the best example of it. Of course, move down the inside of turn 1 is not guaranteed pass, because you have to wing it around the outside of turn 2 and 3 to maybe get to the inside through 4. But I think we're going to see next week a fantastic event at the Nürburgring due to the fact that there's a lot on the line for some of these drivers, and there's no knowing what they'll do to try and get those points required.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Nürburgring gives you opportunities.
Yeah.
It certainly does, especially that opening arena section. We're going to see multiple cars trying cutbacks, trying to get one over their competitors there next week. And I mean, I can speak from commentating on last year's qualifying series for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup, that this is when the drivers that are outside that bubble have to make it count. They can't afford to get involved in any instance that gives them penalties, but at the same point, they can't be scared to make any moves either. Those that are inside the 15, if you're near that cut point, you've got to tread so carefully out there. You're on eggshells throughout that race, so definitely it is one that you will not want to miss next week here.
Well, thank you very, very much, Paul, for joining us for the tail end of the Bose post-race show here. We'll hopefully be able to hear your voice when it comes to the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup season proper in 2022. So we've got the points all totaled up and calculated. Our staff has been working very well in the background to be able to make this one happen. So here's the points. So there's a change of championship leader. We've got David Williams up above Alessandro Pico by 5 points there. So that's one thing that we can talk about coming down into the season finale at the Nürburgring. But remember, more importantly is the battle for 13th, 14th, 15th at this point, those final positions which will get you inside of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup for next season. Currently, it is Jack Sedgwick 4 points ahead of Brian Lockwood, getting himself his slot booked into the season for 2022. So Lockwood, despite that fantastic performance here today at Long Beach, it still hasn't quite got him above the cut line there for the number 43. So he's going to be looking at the Nürburgring as his big opportunity to try and get himself involved in the 2022 season of the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. We are all done here at Long Beach for the Contender Series. My name has been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the ever wonderful Joshua Lee. But you do not want to miss the final round of the season. Same place, same time, next week here on the iRacing and Porsche channels. But for now, we will have to say goodbye and good night.